Welcome to Accountant Payroll Processing in the Post-Intuit Online Payroll World, a panel discussion recorded on June 30th, 2021. This event is sponsored by Tax Practice Pro, a continuing education provider for enrolled agents and certified public accountants. Connect with Tax Practice Pro at www.taxpracticepro.com or on Facebook at Ask the Tax Practice Pro Speakers. Welcome to the panel discussion about accountant payroll processing in the post-Intuit online payroll world. My name is John Sheely. I will be your moderator. I've gotten a group of other professionals, some of whom I know in person, some of whom I know online, all bringing us different ideas for how they are going to adapt to this drop by Intuit. Just briefly, if you don't recall, Intuit, there used to be a product called Paycycle, which probably most of us know. That's what I used to call it, as Paycycle. It was owned by one of the Lacerte brothers. The Lacerte brothers were the children of Lacerte's software co-founder. Paycycle was purchased by Intuit, and they've utilized most of the technology, moved it into other products, and they are now sunsetting the software. There's a July 15th deadline. We won't be able to make changes to the subscription, which I assume is add any clients. And then at the end of the year, no payroll after December 31st. So we all need to think about moving. Recently, we experienced a problem with one of the clients where we couldn't run payroll. We found out you can't call for support anymore. We finally got someone in chat who worked in another department, but said, I'll get you in touch with the right people. And they said it'll be a day or two. Apparently, it's not currently a top priority. So I think as we get closer to the end of the year, this may be more of a problem. So it's just going to be interesting to hear how some of you are handling this. So quickly, if you just take 1 minute or two, tell us who you are and where you're from and maybe what you do. Samantha?
Hi, I'm Samantha McGrath. I'm outside Philadelphia. I'm a CPA with a small practice. Payroll has been a big service of mine since I started. Surprisingly popular. And I guess, is that it?
Yeah.
I don't know how much longer to say.
Samantha runs payroll, as I would say, payroll as a profit center, right? She's looking to make money off running payroll. Nayo,
perfect. I am Nayo Carter-Gray, owner, founder, First Step Accounting, Baltimore, Maryland. I personally am using Gusto exclusively. So in my practice, payroll is an additional service to bookkeeping. I do not have any payroll only clients because, payroll is one of those things that if it's their emergency, it turns into your emergency. And I really don't want to have to deal with that.
Jennifer.
So that was why I originally didn't do payroll, and I didn't offer payroll for a long time. When I first started, it was just an addition. I'm Jennifer Brown, by the way. I'm in just outside of Ogden, Utah. Everybody knows where Ogden is because there's a very large service center there that is very, very backed up. But I didn't do payroll because I didn't want to be committed to the office every single Friday when everybody's paychecks came out and they were wrong. Since then, about 3 years ago, I actually shifted to payroll as a profit center in my office, and I use Patriot software exclusively. I do not use anything else, and I don't allow my clients to use anything else.
And we're going to talk about some of the things that you've told me that I didn't know were so, that we had heard differently. But Jennifer's claim to fame, she is across the parking lot from Jill's office. So if you have any problems with Jill's office as your vendor, you can send Jennifer across the parking lot to bang on the door. It's very useful.
And pretty soon I may not even have to go down the stairs. The office space below me opened up and I might move to it. So.
Oh, no. It's good. Rose Taylor.
Yes. Hi, I'm Rose Taylor. I'm in Oklahoma City, and I work primarily with cannabis businesses. I do have a lot of real estate clients prior to cannabis, and I mostly use Gusto, mostly.
And Rose is not to be confused with Rose. Hang on, what's the matter, Pookie? You need what?
Mikey.
I gave it. Oh.
Thank you.
All right, not going to come on the camera. All right. So anyway, Rose Taylor is not to be confused with Rose Tyler from Doctor Who. All right, Billy Piper's character in Doctor Who. Ryan, Mr. Mitchell.
Ryan Mitchell, Hoboken Tax in Hoboken, New Jersey. So for me, payroll's been a profit center since day one. And as I was building my bookkeeping business first, before I had the tax practice, the payroll reps are always hit and miss, and the turnover, the churn of the payroll reps was always causing my clients issues. So I took the approach of basically building more of a brokerage where I partnered with ADP and I partnered with Paychex and some of the other companies. So I'm able to offer a wider suite of those services, but then still be able to be the intermediary for my clients.
Yeah, but you're doing one thing the rest of us are not yet doing, and you're going to see Mark Barnes make a face. What package are you using right now to process payroll in-house?
In-house, I'm using Accountant's World, Payroll Relief.
Mark in Arizona.
Can you guys hear me now?
We cannot hear you.
Oh, man.
I can hear him this much.
Just a little bit.
Just a little bit. I wonder if his software is if it thinks he's using the camera or something.
Mm-hmm.
I can hear you guys. My headset's connected.
No.
Nope. Solo.
No.
No soup for you.
Solo like the cups, man.
Did that fix anything?
It sounds like you're whispering.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Try pressing F5. We're going to move on, and I'll come back to you. See if going out and coming in helps. So, all right. So let's talk about some of the things here. So migration, I'm going to put aside for a moment. So I'm going to pick on Rose first. Rose is actually using 3 different products, although one of them is primary. So what do you like and why? And then you can tell them, of course, the one problem you have.
Only one problem, huh? No, I primarily use Gusto, and I still have a handful of clients that are in QuickBooks, but we're going to switch them all to Gusto by the end of the year. The biggest thing, like I mentioned earlier, was I do cannabis as my niche, and so QuickBooks is really not cannabis friendly, but Gusto is openly working in the field. So that's one of the biggest reasons that we work with them. Now, it doesn't mean it's perfect. It does have a lot of cons, I would say. It has some pros too, but you want me to go into what my opinion of what some of their pros and cons are on Gusto?
We're going to come back in just a minute, right? But the one thing here is that it was marijuana friendly, and you're using multiple and migrating all to Gusto.
Yeah.
So, Samantha, you're the odd person out from the standpoint that you have been and are still running all QuickBooks Desktop for payroll.
That's correct.
The primary problem, you're in Philadelphia. What was the primary problem, of course, with doing things online?
So, but most applications don't support PA local taxes. So it was really just QuickBooks Desktop, unless you want to do a full service. That was it. So.
And you would end up doing every local return by hand if you used anything else.
Yes, they don't. Yeah, you have to track it outside the system, and you have to file it on your own.
That sounds terrible.
Yeah, taxes are terrible.
Well, and she's also not telling you there's one other issue. Act 32, 2017, 2018 changed the way the local tax works, and you now have to calculate what the higher of. How does it work? I work in one town and I live in another. What do I do?
You have to withhold the local earned income tax at the higher of where they live or work. And there's also a secondary tax, the local services tax. It also has to be calculated based on the employer location. So for each employee, you have to look up their rate and enter that. And I didn't find anything else that supported it except for desktop.
Right. Now, the one we're going to come back when we talk about downsides. Ryan, talk to me about Accountant's World. What did you like about Accountant's World?
So what I like about Accountant's World is, I use it for clients who they may have 1 or 2 checks because it's just blank check stock. I can print them in my office if I have to, or in the event that they want to print checks. So, two, the fees kind of match to the client. So if they have one or two payroll people, maybe I can do $10, $15, $20 a month, or payroll cycle, excuse me. And three, the reporting is sufficient for what that business needs. Right.
Okay.
So I'm able to file New Jersey, I'm able to file the federal. They get updated when the money's going to be coming out of their account and funded. One of the downsides of it is it's a hard 3-day rule for any direct deposits.
Right. So in other words, if it's a Friday payday, money has to be in the account Tuesday, and they
I
draft
have
it.
to approve it by Tuesday.
Okay. And then when do they draft from the accounts?
They typically draft it the day before, but it has to be approved in the system.
Oh,
That's the actual pain in the rear with it.
okay. That's actually worse than I thought. Okay.
So how much
Nio.
did you, wait a minute, I need to ask Ryan a question. How much did you say you were paying for Accountants World for?
So I have some grandfathered in pricing. So my base fee is less than $400 for unlimited transactions. I think the newer platform is, $10 or 10 cents per transaction.
Okay.
Right, on a macro scale, and you can buy a bulk rate.
Right. Purchased in advance.
Right.
Is to get his best price. So, Mark, what do you think? Now he can't hear us. He's like family. He's ignoring me.
He's cut off.
Anyone think he's been drinking?
Look at those bottles.
Nio secretly
They look a little
5% of Gusto.
Yes. So it's Gusto, right? I'm an
Is it
ambassador.
Gusto?
Actually.
Okay.
They have a people advisory certification. So I'm an ambassador and I help teach that certification live. I use the product exclusively because the clients I have on payroll, I don't want to have to manually run payroll, and they have an autopilot feature. So it's great for salaried people, especially like my client base are like single member S corps. So they're getting paid once a month. I can put that puppy on autopilot and never have to touch it again unless we're adjusting the salary. Plus they have a plan, a secret plan. So you didn't hear this from me for a single member S corp only firms. That's $25. So
Ooh.
yes.
That includes the $4 per employee?
It's 25 plus it might be plus the $6 per employee, but it's still cheaper than the core plan of $39. And it's literally only for one employee. So this doesn't work if you have 3, 4, or 5 employees. It really only works for the one.
Very interesting.
And like all the other payroll companies that you do as an accountant user, you'll get your payroll run for free as well. So, and then they have like these tiers, bronze, silver, gold. So if you get so many clients on the platform, they give you a discount if you're paying the fees, or you can pass that discount on to your clients.
So now I was just going to ask you that. So typically, are you paying, you don't have to answer if you don't want, but are you paying the fees? And you're not?
No, I pass the discount on to my clients.
Okay.
Just because, it's just another subscription. It belongs to them. You're going to pay for this. This is yours. I'll do all the legwork, set it up. But once we get it going and running, it's now yours. It belongs to you. And I just make sure it's connected to QuickBooks correctly.
And are you using this is a methodology question, not a how much question. Are you using like a flat pricing, we're setting up and running your payroll, or are you actually saying you have X employees, we charge Y price? Like, how does that, you said it was an add-on.
Yeah, so normally what I do is, depending upon the number of employees, we'll come up with that add-on to the monthly bookkeeping package. So I like, flat fee pricing just because it's simpler for everybody to understand. And then we readjust as things start changing. For the most part, none of my clients have payroll needs that are excessive now, right? All of my people are less than 10 employees. I used to have a client that had 66 employees, and I'm like, yeah, no, we're not doing that again. So I will refer those people out instantly, because I was on my way to honeymoon when I got married and had to run payroll in the airport before I got on the plane. I was like, nope, not doing this. So I made that adjustment quick, fast, and in a hurry.
And And listen, it works both ways, right? You know, but so the other neat thing though is security wise, you could do that, you know, from the airport. You could log into a secure application like that. You could run the payroll. I'm with you. I don't want to be doing that, you know, while you have a payroll emergency. We were talking about emergencies in the webinar just before this. Okay, Jennifer, how does Patriot work? What does Patriot?
So most of you understand how Gusto works. Gusto or Patriot is actually on a very similar platform. I've got 2 holdover clients who run their own payroll, and I just do the connection that use Gusto. So I've seen their system. So it's a very similar system. With with Patriot, I've got Gusto on the brain now. With Patriot, you don't get your account free until you have at least 6 accounts in the system, and then your account is free. If you have 1 to 5 clients in Patriot, you get a 20% discount, and then the discount goes down from there, or up from there. I apologize. Your price goes down from there. I've got 48 clients, and I pay $12 per client plus 50 cents per employee that is paid. So they can have 19 employees in the system. If we're only paying 3 or 4, we only get charged for 3 or 4. The reason we leave inactive employees in their system is so that their portal stays active and they can go get their W-2 from there. And then in January, once we've got the W-2s out, then we'll go in and deactivate all of the people that we hadn't paid yet for the new year.
I refer Patriot. They have a good affiliate program too. I think it's great for like parents who pay their children.
If I switched, it would probably be the problem with Patriot. Don't they have like don't you have to put the money in on Monday for Friday? Or you have to...
Well, we were going to talk about bad things because it turns out, Samantha, that is a misconception that probably spread by other evil payroll providers. Because wait a second, because Amanda McGowan, who Jennifer and I both know, has her clients prepaying one payroll so they always have the money there. And then I had this conversation with Jennifer. Tell them what you told me, which blew my mind.
Out of my almost 50 clients, almost all of them are on 2-day direct deposit.
Oh.
First payroll was 5 days. Second, after that, you can request 2-day with one caveat. And the caveat is that it's kind of like an IRS first time abatement. They'll let you do it no times, right? Because
yep.
Yeah.
If your payroll bounces even one time, you're stuck on 4-day forever. But they have 2-day expedited processing, 3-day expedited processing, and then standard 4-day processing.
All right.
Okay.
So you have to run that first payroll, and that first payroll has to clear. And then that is the amount that sets so they give you an amount. So like your average payroll, say it's $10,000 every 2 weeks. If you exceed that $10,000, then they're not going to let you do all of it as direct deposit. We usually pull the owner and say, okay, do yours as a check or yours as a transfer so that we can make this work. It only happens every once in a while, and it's usually when they're trying to pay out a big bonus or something like that. So a lot of the times we'll just tell them, let's run your bonus as a separate check.
Which makes sense. Mark, are you with us?
I hope so.
Hey! This is like that anniversary
Hallelujah!
episode. It's like that anniversary episode, The 5 Doctors. They had William Hartnell on that monitor, you know? He couldn't be live acting. So Mark's got an interesting thing. So Mark had Paycycle like all of us and ran payroll as a profit center. He discovered Dr. What's his name in Long Island, the accountant's world. And did you even run one payroll? How many payrolls did you run?
So this is the brief history with payroll relief. I ran one payroll for myself, and the tax deposit was not the correct amount. I had one client that got halfway through the electronic process, and then their account was frozen. And after 10 days of back and forth with Accountants World, their account was still frozen. And I had a question on personal use of a company card that they couldn't answer. and they told me I had to run 2 separate payrolls if I wanted to have a company match on 401k or simple plans, and we pulled the plug.
Ouch. Ryan, has that been your experience, or do you not have those problems?
So they do have a underwriting process that from time to time I do run into hiccups with. I have specifically one client that they don't pay by the hour, they pay by the class. Right, so it's the hourly rate looks a little bit higher. It's like $100 an hour, but it's for whatever the length the class is. So yes, to Mark's point, I have had situations where underwriting and getting the account set up to two-step verification has been a problem, but I've been able to work through it with each of those clients. So I can appreciate Mark's feelings, and they have happened to me in the past, but 90% of the time I'll be able to get through them.
One complaint, one observation I'll share is that if you're going to pay a lot of money for the software, it should do the job correctly, right?
Yes.
If it would have been one item, that would have been probably something we could have worked through. But when I looked at my paycheck versus the payroll report, Social Security and Medicare were 2 completely different amounts, and they were off by hundreds of dollars. And nobody could give me any information on why this was happening. And then with the frozen account and this other stuff, it was just like right at the beginning, it was too much stuff at one time.
All right. So I have a question from the group, and I just want to ask multi-state reporting. So I'm assuming there's 2 sets of multi-state we should look at. I live in state A, work in state B, or the company that has payroll in 3 states. So I have payroll in 3 states. Paycycle lets me pay somebody full-time in Pennsylvania, somebody full-time in Colorado. And other than a lot of reporting, I don't have a problem. Samantha, any multi-state issues?
I have Florida and New Jersey. I don't think it's the best for that. That's just my experience. It can file it, but I kind of have to do the tax for Florida. It's only Florida doesn't really have Florida's just unemployment, but it doesn't really know what to do. It's not. I don't think it's the best software if you have that situation.
I'll remind you, you have New York payroll starting this month too.
Yeah. So when you add, the other thing is, when you add a state you're really not familiar with, you have to know what you're doing. Like, it's not a full service payroll. It's as good as you are, like, basically.
Right. Niall, multi-state, what do you have?
I haven't had any problems with Gusto with multi-state, especially, during the pandemic, people were working from home and living in different states. So it handled it, in my opinion, very beautifully. But like Samantha mentioned, you do have to kind of know some of the rules, and making sure that the payroll, the account numbers and things are set up correctly. One thing that Gusto has now done, I think they're partnering with like CorpNet to do those setups. So that's another piece of the puzzle that I hate. Like, if I have a client that has payroll in different states and I have to set up all those payroll numbers, that drives me bonkers. So CorpNet, it's not working in all the states right now, but it helps because it's a flat fee. I think it's like $199, and they'll do a setup in the state for you, and it's much faster than if I have to do it. So
we run into that issue of, oh yeah, I got a guy working in Pennsylvania now. Okay, did you qualify the corporation there? What's that? And we go, so you go through all of that hassle. Rose, multi-state. Oklahoma's kind of big, so maybe people don't go out of state. I don't know. And Texas doesn't have a tax.
Yeah, I haven't had any issues with multi-state and Gusto. The only thing, and I know I mentioned this on our last webinar, is I've kind of had to show Gusto multiple times about certain nuances that our state has with the cannabis industry. So every time we onboard a new client, I have to go back to them and say, they're not going to have this account number until XYZ.
But that's not actually just cannabis, you told me, right? You don't.
It's agriculture,
right?
So
you
I
don't
have a
get an
question
ID
for
number.
you, Rose, too. Do you have a rep that you're dealing with?
No, I mean, no, not directly.
You should. If you have like four, I think it's once you get over like 5 clients, you should have a direct rep.
A dedicated,
Yeah.
direct.
And that
Okay.
person should be your go-to, so you shouldn't have to call the support number.
Okay.
I'm on. They have a GPAC council, so Gusto, like an accountant council. I'll see if I can find out for you who the general
Sure.
person is to tell you who your rep would be.
Well, yeah, like probably a year and a half ago, maybe 2 years ago, I talked to someone extensively about it before I switched over. So I probably have to look back in my records.
Yeah, but that person should be reaching out to you. So that's the problem.
I hope
Yeah.
Rose isn't the only customer that Gusto has in Oklahoma.
No. Oh, you know what? One other thing too, John. I know that this whole thing is because about IOP4A.
Mm-hmm.
Don't the Bank of America payroll? So I know that some people use like some of the banks to run payroll, and it's also the same Paycycle product that we're talking about. So I found out from Intuit that they're actually extending their contract a little longer. So although if we're us accountants, we can't get the direct support, the banks are still, if you're using the Intuit product through the bank, you get a little longer to kind of stay on that product.
You know, the one thing that had come up earlier was that we had heard that they were going to just drop it originally in July or August, whatever it was. And I don't know if it was a misstatement or what had happened, but all of a sudden they sent out a confirmation email. No, you'll be able to use it through the end of the year and all of this stuff. So my thinking would be, boy, I wouldn't want to keep it after this December unless I knew they were keeping it till the following December, because otherwise the only time of year I'd ever want to move personally is December 31st, start the new year with the new provider. I don't have to explain that to everybody.
I think that was a miscommunication. I think somebody read the notice wrong. At least from my interaction with Intuit, the plan was to say, we will not be accepting you. You cannot add anyone to the platform in July. And then they were giving you until December, because nobody wants to have to switch payroll companies in the middle of the year. Like, that's a big hassle. So
the one thought there, not to speak poorly of a publicly traded corporation, evil, but they do want a migration from their one product to their new product. So thinking solely about themselves, it was highly possible that they didn't care what date it was, because, well, why wouldn't everybody migrate over to our other product?
I know for a fact that they cared, because I sat on the council, and so they bring the messaging to some of us beforehand, before they let it out, so that they can say, hey, does this sound good? And they were supposed to do some hand-holding migrations. So depending upon how many clients you had, they were supposed to say, hey, we're going to migrate these 5 first, then the next 5, then the rest of them. So it was not just a mass exodus. They were not playing, because that'll crash their system.
No doubt, right? And I had heard the same thing. That if you were staying with their product, they were going to help handhold you over to their product. So, I was looking. Oh, Mark, talk to us. You found another product. You tested it and you like it, and it's pay.com. No, what is it?
It's called OnPay.
OnPay.
OnPay. So the big changes from IOP are going to be, there's a full service back end where employees can access all of their information, modify their withholding addresses, and a lot of other administrative tasks. It also has the ability for an employer to bring on a new employee, and it sends that employee an email, and they set up their own stuff. So it completely removes that data entry aspect of setting up a new employee. And it also allows the employers to put up any of their employment agreements or sexual harassment policies or any of that type of stuff on the back end. And the employee goes in and reads it and digitally signs everything on the back end. So it's taking a lot of the normal administrative duties away from not only me as the provider of payroll, but also from the employer for having to track down employees when it's time to update stuff, update their employee manual, and all these other things. It does have a lot of things that happen automatically. So tax deposits and payroll forms are done automatically, seamlessly, without any touching from us. If you're using QuickBooks Online, you can set up your preference to export automatically as soon as payroll is completed and authorized. So you eliminate any connection there with yourself. The only challenge that I'm having with it is the ability to set up the general ledger accounts how I want them. And this may be more me than the software. But we like to break out all of our wages pretty specifically for different classes of employees, different categories of employees. And so that looks like that function is going to take a little bit of work to get that to export out exactly how we want it.
But you're there. You're moving your entire payroll practice there.
That's our plan, yes.
Okay. And they have a commission structure. So who's going to own the account? You or the client, and who's paying the bill? You or the client?
So it works like a lot of the other ones where there's an advertised fee and then discounts for certain level of clients. And just like IOP, I can either own the account and I can take control of everything, or I can assign duties out to the employer. And I could have the employer run their own payroll with me just keeping an eye on it on the back end. So we don't do that currently, but I have a few people that are using other options. One of those is the Bank of America payroll. And so people like that will be looking to migrate over, and they can continue to run their own payroll for all I care.
Interesting way to give you access to it. So let me do a quick poll, just methodology wise. Samantha, there's just a fee for doing payroll for you. You charge people a fee based on payroll size.
Yeah, I don't want to get too detailed. I just charge a monthly fee. It doesn't matter how many payrolls you do. Mine aren't very large. Most are one, maybe two employees. So it's just a monthly. I bill it the first of each month, auto draft.
Ryan, what are you doing? Payroll is a profit center, so you charge a monthly fee, or you
lock up those services. So when they run payroll, so depending on the service provider, when they run payroll, I'm collecting a fee.
Right. All right. You're collecting a fee, and they're a software cost.
Correct.
Right. Jennifer, how do you what are you pricing? What's the methodology?
So I have two options. We have the DIY option where I provide the platform and they're running everything. And then I have a full service where I charge per payroll. So if you're running 2 a month, I charge twice. If you're doing 3, 4, 1, whatever it is.
Okay. So again, it's a markup, and Patriot becomes a software cost for you.
Correct.
Rose?
Yeah, I don't run it as a profit center, so I have an add-on basically. I have tiered pricing, so if they kind of based on volume, but if they need payroll, then they're automatically pushed into the next tier.
Okay.
And they cover the subscription too.
Ooh, okay. So you doing my payroll is included, but you're passing on the cost to me. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Nio shaking her head like, yeah, that's
I'm just like Rose, same thing. You know, that whole add-on, we're moving you to the next package. You're paying, but I do pass on the discount. So the clients are always appreciative, even if it's 10% off. They're like, oh, thank you.
You know, I didn't bring her on. Maybe I should have. Some of you know Tina Garza, Accounting Pros, aka Supergirl. Rose has seen her because she's spoken at some of our marijuana conferences too. And she the last I knew, this is all a software cost to her. Xero is a cost to her, and Gusto is a cost to her, and just it's X dollars for her to do your work. And these things are a software cost to her, and she owns it. And of course, she keeps then the discounts, obviously.
And I do that for some of them. Everyone, like I love my little affiliate coins. So I have a nice little link that I can share for clients who aren't bookkeeping clients but need payroll. It gives them a discount. I get a little kickback. Thank you, hallelujah, we're good to go. And then I have some that I've wrapped the cost into the service. But you know, I'm not really pressed about a whole markup. So it may just be the fee of the service plus, you know, the 3 or 4% extra I got to pay for it to collect the payment from them. So I feel you, but I'm not that whole nickel and diamond for software. I'm not doing all that.
Have you?
And I'm opposite. I keep my discount, but I keep my discount to keep my billing simple so that if I gain another discount, I don't have to go correct everybody's pricing. Or if I lose a discount, I don't have to go correct everybody's pricing. I keep my discount to keep my stuff simpler.
That's your reward for success, right? Is that you don't. I don't want to have to reprice everybody. So there is one question here about how many people do some of you have on Intuit Online Payroll? I had over 50 at one point. I was getting that that's what galls me here, is I was getting that $9.99 a month rate, and I really liked it because I was paying not a lot. Of course, I had the $9.99 rate back when it included 0 to 4 paychecks. So I mean, I'm probably paying now for 33 what I used to pay for 50 because the price is a little higher and they charge for every person, for every employee that's active. So anyone else have more than 10, right? All of you, show of hands, right? You all have more than 10. No, anybody more than 20? 30? Anybody have
More than 10 what?
Payroll people. Payrolls that you're running. Anybody else have more than, well, let's go on. Anybody else have more than 50? No, 60? No. What was Joshua saying that Jennifer said that's going to be a project? Oh, Joshua has 450 clients on Paycycle? Good
if
Lord.
he has that many, he probably can reach out to support and get white glove migration. If you are thinking of moving over to any payroll provider and you're bringing that many clients,
they should drive to his house and sit there and key it in.
Yes. Yes.
Holy cow, 450 clients. I don't even want to know what the math is on that. That's got to be $100,000 in fees to Intuit. Wow. Yeah, I'd be starting that now. Also, with that many, you probably have turnover. So if you've got 10 or 20 clients a month coming in, where are you going to put them after July 15th? Because there's going to be no more Intuit online payroll to add them to. Wow. Okay. Go ahead, Jennifer.
You've got a comment over it says, I noticed no one is talking about ADP or Paychex. Is that by design or to keep it exclusive to Gusto?
No, actually.
We've talked about others, not just Gusto, but ADP and Paychex, the biggest problem they both have is their people that come with them.
Well, and the fact that it's different people, you don't get that career person who's going to be there long term. Now, the person that's supposed to, so I'll make a couple of comments. So one person who's supposed to be on here with us, I won't mention her name, is not, and she runs payroll as a profit center and has moved back and forth over the last 20 years from Paychex to ADP using their white label service, right? Where she runs the payroll, her name is on it, but all the back office stuff is ADP and Paychex. And as Jennifer is saying, you go along great with one of them, with whoever you're using, then there's a glitch. It doesn't get repaired, whether because they don't care or whatever the issue is, it doesn't get repaired. So you end up switching and going somewhere else. So that option is out there, especially those of you with more. If I had 450 payroll clients, I would certainly be talking to ADP and Paychex, about what their deal would be to roll it over for me, right, to do my work and what price they would charge me. Quite honestly, Paychex would offer you one-time sales and buy it from you. So if you were looking to exit payroll, that's an opportunity as well.
To the point of dealing with Paychex and ADP, oftentimes when I'm onboarding one of those clients, I would sit down with somebody and they're like, I hate ADP. I never want to work with them again. Or I hate Paychex. And it's like, okay. I flip over, right? So like they need some of the services that I have through the white label program. And I'm
Right.
able to present that and let them run with one or the other and just get them set up. I'm their liaison. So to minimize those hiccups that are going to happen.
Yep.
Your point there.
And for the record, we do have people here using QuickBooks Desktop, QuickBooks Online, Patriot, Accountants World, and OnPay. Right?
And I do have a client on ADP. So ADP does a really good job when I have people that are closer to DC that are dealing with government contractors, and they have to have that payroll split out with the job codes. ADP handles that beautifully. I hate the reps, so I don't deal with the reps, and I hate their platform, the accounting side of things. But they do the job and run the payroll and get the reports, and it works fine. So it's just not I don't go out and recommend it just because of that whole sales relationship. But when we have to use it, we do.
You know, without, so this isn't designed to beat anybody up, but I will say one other problem with Paychex is the folks that work there only know their local market. So we had a problem a couple of years ago. We do a lot of these U.S. subsidiaries of Danish tech startups, right? So long story why they're our clients, but I have a bunch of them. So we had one where they missed the New York City withholding tax on all the employees in Brooklyn, all 50 of them. So one nice thing about having children is you can meet some amazing people through your children. And one particular person's mother was a middle manager at Paychex. And I said to her, we can't figure out why they're missing this. Because we called the rep, and the rep said, Brooklyn isn't in New York City. I went like this. So then I said to this middle manager, well, forget about Queens where there's 50 little towns, right? They never get that. How's that in New York City? So, or Staten Island, the drug capital of the world. It's right in the name, Staten, right? Same thing. So I said to this woman at Paychex, the manager, right, the kid's friend, you mean when I put in a zip code, it doesn't know what taxes to load up? And the woman said to me, you'd think we'd do that, don't you? I said, oh my God. So at the end, the issue was that somebody's relative knew from the company knew a salesperson at Paychex who worked in Minnesota. So the payroll was being processed in Minnesota. And nobody in Minnesota, apparently in that processing center, knew that Brooklyn was part of New York City. It was a completely honest mistake. And they didn't do a darn thing for it other than the woman I knew did in some sort of internal audit where they pulled it and they fixed every single one of the people to make sure the right withholding was coming up. This is a year and a half later, right? So that is also a slightly negative thing, and it goes back to this garbage in, garbage out. If I don't know what I need, what Samantha's saying about the Act 32 issues in Pennsylvania, if I don't know what I need, my results may not be what I want, you know, because you're almost full service here, needing to know that. I've heard of WagePoint. I've not heard of Rippling. But oh, you're muted.
WagePoint is more of my closer to Canada clients. Rippling they are a little larger, and they're better for like larger orgs where you have to not only do payroll, but you may want to give them some equipment. So if you're buying computers for your remote staff, they do a beautiful job of that too.
So Amber's asking a gusto, I got that New York accent, a gusto question. She is in Kansas, and she says that they're on the border of another state. I'm going to assume she talks Kansas City K, Kansas City Mo, right? So, but I could be wrong because she might go someplace. Kansas is a big state too. But what she's saying is she gets dinged by both states in her monthly bill, right? Even if, so just an example, Ryan and I can relate to, New York tax is higher than Pennsylvania and New Jersey. So you may have Pennsylvania residents with zero withholding because the New York tax is higher. She's saying she still gets billed, and that's a true story with Intuit. You're still going to get billed for the additional state. And does Gusto do that?
They don't charge by state. It's a flat rate per month,
Okay.
and then an additional fee per employee. And
So
it doesn't matter how many payrolls you run either. So if you have multi-state, you still that flat monthly fee plus that employee fee.
Okay, so that we can talk about their fees. We shouldn't talk about our fees, right? So without talking about anybody's discounts, Gusto is $39 a month plus $4 an employee.
$6.
$6.
Yeah.
My goodness, that's a lot. $6. Okay, but I'm saying, and you're telling us that's it. There's no other fees, no other anything. That's it.
No.
And then based on volume, there might be some discounts from that.
Yeah, and they guarantee their work too. So if you get a notice while they are managing your payroll, you can send them the notice and they'll take care of it.
Okay.
I've been having issues lately with Gusto and responding to the notices timely. I've had better luck reaching out to the agency directly.
And I'll agree with that. I do know that they just recently hired a bunch of people to handle compliance. They were so behind, and I will completely agree with you on that one because I had to submit a notice too, and they were like, "We'll get back to you in 2 months." I'm like, 2 months? This thing got 3 months worth of taxes or interest by then. So yes.
Well,
Yes.
2 months. If they want to pay the bill and then fight to get the refund, we'll give it back. They can
Right.
take all the time they want, right?
Yeah.
But actually, it's good to know that they're doing that, and I would hope that if there's an egregious problem, especially with all these credits that we have right now, I would hope that they would put those in the top of the pile versus you allegedly paid it a day late people, but you never know.
Right. Well, see, I do know that whole ERC thing is a issue. I don't think any of the payroll companies are handling that well.
The IRS isn't handling it well either, and that's not a criticism. All right, it's just this is the way this rolled out.
Right.
So Faith is saying, I had a client on Gusto Augusto who said they were required to run a separate payroll for the separate states. It couldn't be combined in the same check run. Can anyone speak to that?
Was it one employee and they had 2 different states? Like I don't understand the question.
I think she means I've got 5 employees in New York, 5 employees in New Jersey. I need to run 2 payrolls. My New York people first, my New Jersey people second.
I haven't had that problem.
Okay. So if that's not it, Faith, tell me.
That's probably it. That's probably based on their setup.
Well, Amber is saying she does not want to pay an additional fee as I don't want to file or withhold for the other state. So sometimes even though you don't need to withhold for the other state, you do need to file. So so you might want to be sure about that. If you weren't required to file and they were dinging you, I'd be saying, what's wrong here systemically? I want my money back. We have issues where we need to file the returns in New Jersey, even though there's no withholding and no employer taxes to pay. We still have to file. Okay.
So on QuickBooks, their pricing is going to be driven by the address of the employee.
Right.
We just had one pop up where a client was here. They moved to California. They were nice enough to send in a corrected address, which I put in so they get their W-2, but it immediately populated a second state and all of the forms that would be required in California, even though they haven't been paid and they're no longer an employee. So it's in QuickBooks, it's going to work based on where that employee's address is, even if there's not a filing requirement in that state.
Ouch. I'll remind everybody, even though we know this, all of these mismatches are creating a nightmare, especially with this pandemic. I think the next year to 18 months, we are going to have all sorts of notices that make no sense, except that somebody worked from home. We had an employee move from California to Massachusetts, not tell the employer. I only know because they don't pay attention, and I do. And I got an email alert from Paychex. Hey, you may need to check this because you may now have new filing requirements. Sure as heck we do. We had to qualify in Massachusetts. We had to start collecting sales tax in Massachusetts. This one employee made a mess, and he moved without permission. So we caught it, but they're going to have other issues because we're filing 1 quarter late, and we still have a California report that we're going to file with zeros on it. And they didn't have the right unemployment. I think we're all going to see that stuff. And of course, our leaders in the wise souls of the Supreme Court did not choose to help us decide some of this, right? They're not listening to Massachusetts versus New Hampshire, right? They said no, thank you. So, okay, Patriot is $30 plus $4 an employee. Okay, that's a little cheaper.
Oh, Patriot pricing is awesome. I
Yeah,
have
that
to,
is
like I
awesome.
said, I recommend it for, those parents that want to pay their children. I think Patriot pricing is amazing.
Well, and one other huge bonus to Patriot that I've been pushing in my business a lot, and it's helping me get a lot of clients, is we've got a lot of people who are paying contractors and employees. I can pay both through direct deposit, through Patriot. It generates my W-2s and my 1099s, and all I have to do is click a button.
Gusto
was a-
does that too.
That
I
was
think
a
all of them
question,
are doing that now.
See, that-
Even Intuit, the on a QuickBooks payroll is doing that now too.
We've been doing that on Intuit Online Payroll, and that's actually how I get paid by all the clients. Is I'm a contractor on all of their accounts, and we sweep at the end of the month. We pay ourselves. I've written permission, trust me, but that's what we're doing, and it's worked well. Knock on wood for 5 years now. So
That's still that gets kind of like into an AP function then too when you're paying contractors as well.
oh.
I mean,
Well, can we say misclassified workers? Because this, lots of folks paying their, misclassified workers hourly each Friday, right? So,
sure.
actually, something we didn't mention here is all the software now blocking ITINs, right? You can't enter an ITIN into the payroll system now. Anyone else see? Is that true?
I have not experienced that.
Okay, I mean, we boot people. If there's a 9, I tell them you can't do this, but no. Okay. So Mark was talking. You were saying mapping was an issue with OnPay, right? But it wasn't mapping just the way you wanted. It did map.
It definitely maps, and I'm sure once I dig into it more, it'll become a little more clear. Just we're picky on where things post to the general ledger, and we break out different wages and payroll taxes. If you're the receptionist, I want it to post to the receptionist pay line or whatever. And so it looks like there's going to be a little more finagling on the front end, or a little more education on my part to get that all to work out how I want it to show.
Got it. Anyone else have an export issue with getting, I mean, Samantha, obviously you're already doing it in QuickBooks. Anyone else have an issue getting from any of these payroll providers to export a file for QuickBooks, right? Is anybody rekeying?
I don't export. Perhaps desktop allows that, but I don't. When the money goes out to the bank from the bank, I just clean it up with journal entries each month.
Oh, that's right. You're using Intuit Online Payroll, online QuickBooks.
That's right. Yeah.
All right. So you've got QuickBooks Online for everything but payroll, and QuickBooks Desktop for payroll.
That's right.
Okay, got it.
Patriot has a direct connection, so it just ports directly over, and you can tell it how to map and how to go.
That's into IOP, right? Not desktop?
Correct.
Okay.
It's
And
not
Mark-
IOP, it's online.
QuickBooks Online.
Forget. Yeah, you're right. It's QBO is what I meant.
And in reference to Catherine's comment, it does export correctly. Because I watch it every month for all the clients that I do bookkeeping for, and I've never had a single problem.
Mark, just for the record, what are you exporting into, QBO or QB Desktop?
We currently do both.
Okay. Then that's neat too, that you don't need to use Zapier or any of those other tools to get these exports to work correctly. Anyone using Xero? No Xero users? Okay. So I want to ask you if you're exporting to Xero.
Patriot will export to Xero.
Yeah,
I don't know if it does it correctly, but it will.
I think they all, well,
Yeah.
Gusto perfectly does, right?
Yeah.
Gusto, I keep saying it wrong. Gusto does it. So I'm just asking because not knowing who the attendees are, we just asked that, Randall. Howard, you're 15 seconds behind because of the delay. Yeah, Randall Patrick in Texas is asking any problems exporting into Xero, and the question is, it'll do it. We don't know how well it does it. We do know that I keep saying it wrong, right? It's supposed to be Gusto, right? Gusto and Zero are neighbors in Denver and are practically own each other. So I know that that's done well into Zero. Catherine Bastakudi is saying yes to Zero. So, okay. You can always email Jennifer, mytaxexpertinc@gmail. She's happy to help you. She's on Mountain Time, even though she's in Utah. Utah is on Mountain Time, not Pacific Time.
Why would we be Pacific?
Why would Arizona not change the clock? It's just the way the world is, you know?
We're never confused unless we're dealing with outsiders.
That's true, right? You know what time it is. It's the rest of us that change. I read an article that said we only need 2 time zones in the United States these days. So anyway, but here we are with 4. So what if I had to ask you, what is the worst thing about each of the tools we've been talking about? Samantha, worst thing about QuickBooks Desktop?
So yeah, someone had a question about that. There is no dashboard or matrix telling you what you have to pay, tax, who you have to pay. So it's quite possible for you to forget to pay somebody or forget to file a return or forget to pay someone's taxes. You have to have some task management software and you have to set it up. It is only as good as you. And when it's very easy to, listen, I actually love the software. It also does after the fact, which we didn't even mention. And you can set it up. It's so easy. You don't have to deal with all these problems, but it's only as good as you set it up. So if you don't set up a tax to be paid, it's not going to appear in your company's matrix, and then you'll just never pay it until the bills come.
Just taking that one step further, offline, Samantha and I were talking about this, and this is a conversation I always have with Fred Stein, because he uses the same model as Samantha. How do we know that one of your employees didn't take up a crack habit and not do any of their work this month, right? How do you know the payroll reports got filed, the taxes got paid? A lot of these tools, including Intuit Online Payroll, give you a list. This isn't done, or these need to be done. All of a sudden you have tools that don't. Maybe you could get screwed here and find out 3 months later. Ryan, worst thing about any of the tools you're using?
You still have to understand payroll and what you're trying to accomplish. It's not like some of our tax software, which will populate various forms for us. You do have to keep your finger on the pulse with any of the platforms out there to get the numbers right for your clients, for your own reporting requirements.
Okay. Rose, worst thing.
There are long direct deposit limits for some clients, especially if they have, I know Gusto, they want to see bank statements for 3 months when we're onboarding a new client. So if they've had any NSF charges, they automatically get pushed to a 4-day time limit or, direct deposit. And then also they still randomly request bank screenshots before they'll even process a direct deposit. And I don't know if this is more so because of the niche I'm in, but that's
going to ask. Okay, yeah.
That's the biggest hiccup for sure.
Okay.
Yeah, I haven't had to do any of that.
Just me.
So on that, how do you handle payroll in a holiday week if you have a 4-day lead time?
Yeah, we, usually that's something that we'll go to the client and say, look, we need your hours this time
early,
sooner, or it's late. The other bad thing
I'm
is
closed on Fridays, so that would be problematic to have to run payroll on a Friday. I'm not here.
Mm-hmm.
Gusto does a really good job of letting you know when the holidays are coming, though, based on your schedule. So they'll send an email.
When you need to submit it. This probably won't apply to anyone, but Gusto, you have to have a bank account, whereas with QuickBooks, you don't. You could say it's your cash account.
I was just going to ask that. So on a holiday week and time is running short, I have an option, though, of cutting checks and not doing direct deposit, right?
Yes, that too.
Yeah. So that's been a solution we've done with some clients. Rose, this is not a negative comment, but although Gusto is 420 friendly, as we used to say, they are not. They are, keeping in mind this is not a negative comment. What do they do to your marijuana clients?
They have recently started requiring much more due diligence and charging a yearly $250 fee, the weed tax.
Well, and when I say being fair for a minute, so for those of you that don't know, I know a little bit about taxation of cannabis. We've been teaching it for 8 years, I think. And I know that the back end compliance of any financial institution or a public company even touching this stuff, man, they've got to be super solid on the know your customer rules. So to be honest with you, I think $250 is probably a bargain. Where, right? Because somebody is looking at their license.
I think that is a bargain. My concern is eventually, and just like when you start to work with a bank that's 420 friendly, my concern is down the road they're going to realize, this or somebody's done an audit and they're still not making money. So then they're going to kick everyone out. That's always my concern.
And you know what? But the fact that they're charging a fee though is a good sign, because they're acknowledging the additional costs and the additional expenses, and they're trying to keep doing the business and mitigate some of the costs. So that's smart. Yeah, some of these banks, I think they went like this with the cannabis fees and with what they were going to charge. You know, well, there's people out there accuse them of gouging, and when you think about what they're going through, maybe not gouging. But yeah, remember, what does marijuana from a marijuana dispensary smell like? One of two things: Febreze or weed. Right, Febreze or weed. Right. And the Federal Reserve doesn't want that money, and the bank can't use it, so they're sending it all back for destruction anyway. So Jennifer, did you tell? Oh, you told me your bad thing, Rose. Jennifer, tell me the worst thing about the products. Worst problem.
I don't like that they don't have any form of expedited setup. So there is no way to move yourself to the front of the line if you need to get a payroll done quicker. There's no way to get the EIN verified faster or the identity verified. There's no way to get it set up within 48 hours. You have to have a decent lead time to make sure everything is in and set up properly.
Okay. What is the lead time at Patriot, if you had to say?
So if I have a compliant client who's actually giving me all the information and everything I need, the fastest we've been able to do it is 5 days.
Wow.
Whoa, 5 business days?
Yeah. Because they're manually verifying the EIN letter. They want, again, if you want direct deposit, you have to upload a bank statement. They're verifying and going through all of that stuff. So sometimes we've run it and we've said, okay, we're going to run it as checks the first time around, and then we'll run the direct deposit second time around just to get it done. We've had to do a couple workarounds.
Wow.
And I've been on a couple panels with them trying to get what they need to improve. And that's been on there. I'm like, I will absolutely pay for 24-hour verification if I've given you all the crap. I'll give you an extra $20-$30 to get it approved faster if I can be moved to the front of the line. And they just don't have that yet.
You know, but for a company that's scaling, 5 days does seem a little excessive. I would think 48 hours, because all this stuff is automated, or at least it should be, right? Yeah. Mark, worst thing.
Worst thing would be that Intuit bought it.
Oh, not Paycycle, Mark.
Oh.
But hey, here you are.
I haven't used books. Here I am using QuickBooks. I can't tell you the number of times I've talked about trying something different, but unfortunately, there's really not an option. There are, but there's not at the same time.
Right.
OnPay, I haven't used OnPay enough to be able to answer that question yet. They do have a full onboarding process, though, where you send them the information and they take care of everything. If you're switching payroll in the middle of the year, they update all the employee information, so I don't have to do any of that stuff. But as far as the negative, I don't have one yet.
Okay. So
that will be your negative in a minute.
Naya, what's your worst worst thing, if you had to say it?
It's got to be customer support. Just because I know, just hired a bunch of new folks. So a lot of the times, if you need to call customer support, you're getting a new person, and so that support takes a little longer than if you were talking to someone who has been there for 5 years. So that's probably my biggest complaint.
And they're all U.S. based support,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Mark, OnPay is U.S. based support so far.
Correct.
Yeah. Jennifer, Patriot is U.S. support. Ryan, I know Dr. What's his name? Accountants Road is on Long Island, right? All U.S. based support.
For the most part, yes.
Samantha, I know QuickBooks is Northern Hemisphere, but
Oh,
they're
it's
not.
terrible.
They're not
You
US
get directed to a web page.
Right. Right. You can't even call or text
Yeah.
anymore. Right.
You can't. It's bad. Yeah.
Right.
And I will tell you, they know it's bad too because they keep talking about it. So it's something that they're supposedly bringing back in the fold, right? Because when they bought T-Sheets, I can't remember where T-Sheets headquarters is, but they're supposed to be having a bunch of support people at the T-Sheets headquarters.
Ben Brown, if you know who Ben Brown is from all his emails, he had a thing the other day where he says, look how much Intuit spent, and it was on marketing, right? It was like $247 million out of their $1.2 billion. And now that we're having this conversation, you know I'm going to go back and look and see how much if they break out customer support costs or not, because you know that they're controlling that, but they're spending the advertising to bring folks in. And this is not meant to be a statement that U.S.-based support is better than offshore support, but Intuit support has just been really bad lately.
It's been bad, and they know it. They definitely know it. They know it.
But do they care?
They do care.
No.
Niall keeps apologizing.
I'm not apologizing for them. I will say this. What I'm learning is that they care, but because they're a corporate giant, it takes them a little longer to do things versus some of the smaller companies. Like smaller companies can, hear something and say, oh, we don't like this, and pull the team together and get it done. But a company like Intuit, they got to run it through 15 million flagpole channels, right. And then they got to clear it with compliance, and then they got to do this. So they definitely care. It's just the process just takes way longer. And we're like, come on, like, we're tired of BS. Get it together.
Go ahead, Ryan.
I was just going to say, like, one of Intuit's problems is, are they supporting the accountants, or are they trying to be the accountants?
They are supporting their primary customer. See, there's this big misconception that the accountants are their primary customer. Their primary customer is the do-it-yourself person. So they support us, but we're not their primary customer. If you look at the breakdown on where their income comes from, I think accountants make up about 30% of that revenue. So, when I hear that all the time, I'm like, but how you get mad when we're not the person they're trying to serve? Like, they're trying to solve the problems for their primary customer. We're a secondary customer, although they love us.
This is like Uber. Remember, who does Uber think their customers are? The people,
the drivers,
or the drivers? The drivers are Uber's customers. They kind of care about us because we can sue them over things, but otherwise they're worried about keeping those drivers happy, getting those drivers in the door. So I get that they're a platform, and that's who the customer is the driver.
And the only reason I can speak to some of this they care is because I sat on the Intuit Accountant Council, and I do get the opportunity to interact with some of the higher ups. And they literally will come to me and ask a question like, can you read this? How is this going to come across? So like when they just did that whole campaign of the price increase, they took some of my suggestions and put them into place. Like that, when you log into QBO and you see that notice, your price is increasing. That's because I told them, hey, y'all are sending an email out on a holiday weekend. Y'all need to make this very clear that this pricing is going to go up and people are not going to be happy. So y'all need to make sure you have somebody for them to yell at. And so they set up those 2 town halls. They put the pricing across the notification when you logged in, and they sent 2 emails. So they do listen.
Of course, they did raise the price of a product that they're closing down, but let's not touch that, right?
Look, I've been, and as much as I two QBOs on it, I have been off of QuickBooks Payroll for years now. So I've
What does everyone use for like their firm payroll?
Gusto.
Gusto.
Mine's in Patriot because it's free.
Right, it's free.
I use desktop.
I'm going to put up a poll for a minute. It's a one-question poll that's just asking you, and this was June Pina's idea, where do you think you're going? If you're currently an IOP user, where do you think you're going? So that poll is up if any of you want to answer. I don't think you guys will see it, just the participants will. Samantha, in a word, how many days to get a new client onboarded with QuickBooks Desktop Payroll?
I mean, I could do it right now. The direct deposit takes a day because the bank has to confirm the bank account. But if someone's like, I want to write a check, I can put it in, and it's so flexible. I know everybody's hating on QuickBooks Desktop, but it is extremely flexible. You can really do whatever you want.
Right. No.
Yeah.
Ryan, how many days to get somebody up on Accountant's World?
It's 3 to 5 based on their back end electronic process of getting the accounts verified and that type of stuff.
Mark, do you have a feeling for OnPay?
It should be 2 to 4 days. Part of that's verifying bank accounts. And
Jennifer, what do you think on Patriot to get it up and running?
Usually it's 5 to 7. That's why I said that's its biggest problem is it takes it a little bit because I think they have people actually verifying the information rather than automated stuff verifying the information. But then again, the support, I can chat, call, anything, anytime, and I've got a human almost immediately.
Oh, wow. Okay. So, are we talking about Drake? What are we talking about here? All right. Rose and Niall, I guess both of you. I mean, what's the time these days to get on Gusto, to get up and running? Gusto.
The fastest I've ever done is 2 days. But on average, like 2 to 4 days. It depends on the client having connecting the dots with the bank because they use Plaid to verify. So if the client can go in and log in and everything goes through, is perfect. Every once in a while, it doesn't work that well because depending upon the bank the client is using. But for the most part, about 2 to 4 days.
That's been our challenge with all these foreign companies that we have U.S. subsidiaries of. When they open up here in America, nobody's got a social security number. Now, Intuit has been, when you used to be able to get someone on the phone, they put a little link there, and I would upload a Danish passport. I don't think anybody there spoke Danish, but boy, they immediately said, okay, this person exists. We know our customer, and they opened it up, right? That plus the 8655, boom, we were in business. And I just find that funny, but they had that record.
That's interesting. I've never come across that situation, so I wonder how Gusto would handle that. That's a good.
Yeah, I haven't either.
Well, my line to them would be, you take marijuana clients, don't you? Oh. people that haven't been on the system in 20 years, right? But that would be like my first thing. I mean, that's where I'm leaning right now. And that's going to be my first inquiry is, when I have this, can you help? Because I really don't want to be the primary person on a dozen companies, Anyway.
Yeah, that's a good call out right there. That's like the test.
Yeah, that's the test.
You have foreign employees.
Do you know what Denmark is? Well, actually, their close association with Zero is started by a bunch of descendants in the penal colony, right?
Would you say Zero was started by
by the descendants of people in a penal colony? Australia, right? Australia and New Zealand is where Zero started.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
And they're a big partner. No, my point is that they are principally a foreign company. So I think I think this may be something that they've looked at already, and I'm hoping that there'll be a way to do it. So 23% of those of you that answered the survey said you're going to use something else. And if you would just put in the chat what that is, that would be awesome to hear, because maybe we've missed the boat on something.
You didn't put Patriot on the list.
Really?
Really?
He did not. But I love
when I was
the 3% that said no more payroll.
Right. They all said no more, no more. Yeah. So something else is all going to Patriot. All right. Fair. You guys are all good. It's like family. You're all good at calling me out on stuff. Poor John, as my daughter would say, laughing at me, not laughing with me. Got it. All right. Debbie is asking, when do returns get e-filed? Clients often get us into near end of month or drag their feet on decision making. I don't give them a choice personally, but
Gusto files them automatically on time. I've never had to press a button on that one.
No.
Right?
That was the main reason I switched, because in QuickBooks you had to press a button and I would forget. Oh no.
That is why I will pay extra per client every single month, so that I don't have to run those. There's like a ridiculous amount of steps. Like I've saved myself 4 days a month by doing it this way rather than that way.
Oh, wow.
I think the question is, on these automatics, when are they getting run? Because what if you have a client that needs S corporation insurance added and they don't get you that information until January 15th, and it needs to be backdated to December 31st? So on these automatics, when's it processing and e-filing those 941s, and does that screw that up?
You can have Gusto make a correction, but they're really good about this process. They start in like November telling you when you need to have all of that stuff updated, because your W-2s are going to be run on this date and you need to have them reviewed by this date. And if you don't, you're going to have to wait. So.
All right. I'm going to tell you guys a funny story about Gusto.
Oh.
So someone who many of you might know paid me some money they owed me on payroll last year. And that's for an obvious reason you might all think about, right? That they owed us money. That's how they chose. Can we put you on payroll? And that's what they did, right? So that's fine. I didn't get a W-2 from this entity. So I called, I emailed. Well, I didn't hear back. So I went there and said, well, they got to have a self-serve site. Sure enough, I went there. I knew the ID number. I knew all the third-party shared secrets. And they said to me, your employer has chosen to not let us run the W-2s. Contact them directly. I'm like, what? Because I know that's where the payroll was. So sure enough, there is a deadline that's probably towards the end of January that the employer needs to say, yes, please run my W-2s, or please approve my W-2s, or whatever it is. And if you don't reply, they don't run them.
Well, with Gusto, they automatically run them. So I can tell you with 100% certainty that those W-2s will get run even if they are incorrect.
I will tell you the name offline, and you will get a good laugh.
Yes, anyway. That is funny as heck. That company must not have paid their Gusto fees for that month.
I was thinking something along those lines too, but all right. So yeah, so Debbie has a question. On time meaning middle of the month, or the 20th of the month, or when? So let me throw something out there to you. New York State unemployment is huge, right? You pay 3, 4, 5% of the first $13,000 per employee per year. You only pay it at the end of the quarter. So like if you're IBM, GE, Walmart, you still hold all that money till April 30th. So the question here, of course, is that when are they going to draft that money? I'd like them to draft it the last possible day, but when are they doing things like that? We don't know, right?
Gusto takes the money out when they run payroll, so there's no holding on to those trust fund monies.
Some clients like that because that kind of just gets the cash out of there. It's gone. It's spent.
I don't know that they can impound I hear what you're saying. But we don't even know the quarterly unemployment rate. We don't know the rate until February 15th of the year. But that's interesting. All right,
But they keep up to date with what the basic rate is. So they know the bare minimum rate, and they will assign that and pull it, and then they will make adjustments. So when they go through compliance, if they're like, oh, your rate went up, they will tell you your rate went up. We have to send in more money. That has happened.
Right, and we're going to adjust you by this many dollars to catch you up. Okay.
So to answer, on Debbie's question, the 941, looks like they filed them on the 15th.
So impound is not optional, you're saying, right? They only impound? All
So
right.
with Patriot, if you're doing the full service where they're filing, impound is required.
Okay.
If you do the basic, which is the super cheap one, but you're filing the reports, no impounding required.
Interesting. Okay. So, a thought here. You don't know yet, Mark, right? On pay.
I think OnPay impounds too, because I remember looking at them.
Well, these remember too. These are not really a wholesale tool, right? We have to keep remembering the Paycycle tool that's being retired was an accountant's wholesale tool, right? It was a tool for us to use. So it does make sense that all these other things are not a tool for us to use. They're actually a product which we can get at a discount. So that makes sense. It does change the world a bit. If you had to guess, because I know that we're hitting the end here and I appreciate everybody's time. For year end, if you're going to switch to any of these tools, what are you going to do? When are you going to start setting up companies and moving this stuff? Anybody want to volunteer?
When I made my switch, I did it mid-December so that everything could be set up to run on January. So I'm one of those people that know I'm going to take the last from Christmas to the first week in January off. So I don't want to do anything after December 20th.
Right.
So Patriot offers for anybody the first 30 days free. So I would start switching them December 1st and use my free month to get everybody switched over and get everybody ready. So if I needed to run a payroll January 1st, I'm ready to go.
Anybody else have any thoughts?
I like to just kind of sit down with clients and start the onboarding conversation as early as November for the year end, just because we're kind of running around and holidays happen and life happens with it. So just to make sure that they're verifying their accounts and the bank deposits and stuff like that it's all getting done earlier the better.
That's true too, that these providers are probably busy towards year end, plus everybody wants a vacation or a break for the holidays. So, wow. Anybody have any parting comments? Nayo, you have anything for us?
Yeah, so my power went out. So I don't know if you guys talked about the thing you love about the payroll companies, but the one thing about Gusto I absolutely love is that you have the ability to import hours for your per pay. So like if you have a large payroll and you have an Excel spreadsheet with all the hours on them, you're able to import those hours and get payroll run sooner than later.
Wow. So if I have somebody like my cousin who we give a break to, and he's got everything, they do send an Excel spreadsheet. You're saying, is there a template or do you map it? But
yep, it's a template. You go into the client file, download it, and then just pop in those hours and upload it, and you're good to go.
That might be one of the most amazing things I heard today. So that's with Gusto.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Wow.
Patriot has it too.
Okay.
Basically, almost anything that Gusto has, Patriot has it too.
Does Patriot do all the child support garnishments? They pay them, remit them, and everything?
I've gotten really lucky with mine. I only have ever had one client that had child support, and I had to do it, but that was when I first started with Patriot in 2018.
Okay.
So they could have changed it since then, but I don't know. I would assume you would just set them up as somebody else being paid and pay it that way.
I think
Gusto. I was going to say Gusto handles the child support, and I feel like that's a really big thing that I love about it. I'm like, no. Every time I get that up, no.
Wow.
But it's a big perk.
We have a couple of people that have that problem, right? That have several prior arrangements in several different counties, so they have several different obligations calculated. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Parting wisdom, Samantha?
So it's not really fair to compare like QuickBooks Desktop to all these full service applications. If you do choose to use desktop, I would recommend getting your 5-digit PIN. That's called a registered agent PIN. You can get off your e-services application. And then you can e-file the state and federal returns. And now, like New Jersey, I just go in there and it's like click, 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 and I'm done. Pennsylvania obviously is weird, but other states, I'm still learning New York. Hopefully it's as easy as New Jersey. Like, it's really not a big deal. Like, yeah, you have to open the separate file, but if you have that PIN, you can just e-file everything. You are becoming then a full service company. Maybe that's not what people want, but if you are using it, you should know that's out there to help.
By the way, that's why you're here, Samantha, is that it is an option, it is viable, it is out there. Let's talk about it, not so much about comparing, is this better than that, but to say to people, I'm small and that sounds like it works for me. I'm huge and that works for me. I mean, for a relevant range of 0 to 50 companies, your thing works. If you get above 50, the price changes. So, Ryan, you have any parting wisdom for us?
Know enough of what clients not to take. Right? I mean, let's just be realistic. Like, I don't want a client on Accountant's World that's in Philadelphia. It's going to be a headache. I'd rather.
That's Philadelphia.
Right? I just so know what clients to say that your current platform, whether it's Gusto, Accountant's World, Paychex, or whatever, whoever the vendor is, your go-to, is it going to work and help find them a vendor that they can use where you're not going to get burned when they screw up?
We'll just send them all to Samantha.
Ryan, Philadelphia is so screwed up. There's a road. One side of the road is in the city. The other side isn't.
Yeah.
What?
It's true. It's true. Yes.
What road is that?
It's in Valley Kinwood. It's City Line Avenue. Half is Philadelphia, and the other half, all the restaurants are on the Philadelphia side. All the businesses are on the Lower Merion side.
So they don't pay all of these Philadelphia business taxes and employment taxes or employee withholding too. So
that's a smart realtor right there.
There you go. Anyone else have anything? Any parting wisdom for us? Anyone want to say anything? I think it's amazing that all of you folks gave me this time to come and help me and help our friends and our colleagues. And thank you again. Have an enjoyable rest of the week.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.